In this video, I'll show you everything you need to know about the rectangle tool in AutoCAD, and there's more to it than you'd expect. To begin with, you can access the tool via the button at the top of the page or by typing in REC into the command line followed by spacebar or enter to confirm it. Once you have the rectangle tool out, to use it in its most simple way, just click twice and a rectangle will be generated between these 2 points. To more accurately create a rectangle, you can define the first point using the input fields below, or simply click anywhere once, and then after that you'll see that we have an input field that appears on the length and the width of the rectangle. Type in the desired length into both of the input fields, and the way that we're going to reach the other input field is by pressing tab, and then I can cycle between them and press enter once I'm done, and that gives me a nice precise rectangle. Something to note is if you just input one of the lengths on a portion of the rectangle, one side will be locked after pressing tab, and then you can move the cursor around and only the other input will change. Here you can click again or type in your other value. So that covers how to place a rectangle, but when the rectangle tool is open, you'll notice that at the bottom of the screen there is a number of options that appear in the command line. To begin with, I'm going to show you the width command, and what I'll do is I'll show you width, and yes, so you can click on it or you can type in W and then spacebar to access it, and after doing so you can input the desired line thickness that you'd like the rectangle to be, or much like the offset tool, you can click twice and the distance between either point will be applied to all the rectangles that you create in the future, like so. And obviously that's quite thick, so I can set this to 50. Not quite as thick, but has a level of thickness to it, unlike the previous ones. And this will be the case for the rest of the rectangles that you draw. If you want this to set this back to what you originally had, just open up the width option again and set this to 0, not to 1. Next, I'll show you the fillet option, and you can access this by typing in F and space or pressing on fillet here. Then we can set the values of the corners, since the rectangle will be generated with fillets. So in the event that you select a fillet value of 5,000, the fillet won't be applied to the rectangle until it is large enough so that the fillets can actually properly fit. And much like before, you can reset this back to a normal rectangle by typing in 0. A similar action can be undertaken using the chamfer option. Much like you would imagine, chamfers will be applied to the corners at the desired values that you select, and even uneven chamfers can be created. So I'll just make this big enough, and then once it becomes big enough, the chamfers will then be added to the rectangle. The other options that you can see at the bottom here are elevation and thickness, but they don't seem to have any effect on the 2D rectangles, so I believe they are used in the 3D part of the software, but that's something to cover in another video. Now you might be surprised at this, but there's actually even more options we can edit for the rectangle tool, and these appear once you've already set the first corner of the rectangle. So now I've clicked once, you see at the bottom of the screen we have area, dimensions and rotation. So the first is the area option, which we can access with A and then space, and then we can determine the size of the area that we want inside of the rectangle. So considering I'm working in millimeters at the moment, I'll be setting the value in millimeters squared. Then once the area has been determined, you can click space to advance, and here we choose what the side of the rectangle we want to define. So I will stick with length for the time being, and then we can determine the length of the length. So if I set this to, let's say 300, and then the other side of the rectangle will be automatically generated. So you see I've got a 300 lot, 300 wide at the bottom here, and then the other value we have is 16.66, because this will give us an area, if I just check this, of 5,000. You see at the bottom of the screen there. I find this extremely useful when I'm designing HMOs, as I need to ensure that each room has a minimum area. Next, we have the dimensions option at the bottom of the screen here, and once again you can type in D and spacebar or just click on it. And this one doesn't make a lot of sense since we can create the exact same outcome without the need of pressing D and spacebar, but this works as you'd expect, asking for 2 values, and once those values are given you can then choose the orientation of the rectangle depending on whereabouts you move your mouse. Lastly, we have the rotation option, and this simply creates the rectangle at your desired angle rather than requiring you to first create the shape and then rotate it afterwards. And this can be done by either clicking in at whatever angle or more specifically by typing in. And now you'll see that I'm creating it a more of a diamond shape. If you found this video helpful, then subscribe. More tutorials like this are on the way, and if you're interested in receiving tutoring from myself, then feel free to take a look at the form linked in the description to reach out to me.